Right. Yeah. Hello, Lori. You're my only face today. How are you? Good, 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 good. And we have a second Jonny Christensen coming online. Thank you.
I just have always wanted to be Jonny.
Identity theft is not a joke. Well, awesome. Welcome. Those of you who are on already. I think we ended up with about 30-ish that registered for this. So I'm sure we'll have a few latecomers, but I did a tour of career visioning the last several months. I think I taught to probably maybe 150, 200 of agents over the 5-6 launches. And as promised, I said that we'd come back and talk about 30, 60, 90. I know Shoni has a short attention span, so we are going to zip through this content. Again, this is a day-long course that we're fitting into probably an hour, hour and a half, something like that, depending on how much questions or discussion items you guys want to chat about. But I would love to make this more of a conversation. 30, 60, 90 to me is incredibly important. I think I'm overqualified to teach this because I've made every mistake possible in training people. So I think we'll learn a lot from mistakes. And also just leading and motivating your people after you got to have them launched and owning their position is a very vital piece to being a leader and helping grow an empire. So there's usually only a handful of reasons people come to this. A lot of times career visioning tends to be the 1/3 most popular piece, and it's so complex. There's so many pieces to it to really master hiring talent that a lot of people wash out and don't get to this curriculum, but it is equally vital to me. And again, there's a good way and a bad way going down this road. So real quick, the handful of reasons people usually like this course is number one, they're looking to hire someone sometime in the future and they don't want to screw up the training programs, right? They really want to launch effectively. Number two is people have hired them and they launched them incorrectly. So they're trying to learn from their mistakes. Sometimes we just have people that love learning about all sorts of things even before they jump into it. But I guess real quick, for those of you who want to just shout out in the chat or, that want to take the microphone real quick, what are you hoping to get out of this? Why are you on this class? This is no doubt a high level leadership, attracting talent, build an empire type of curriculum. But what were you hoping to get out of this or discuss? Feel free to chat or voice your opinion. Hayden, go ahead, unmute her.
The first time I took this class, we went way over my head. So I just thought if you guys are going to cover, just want to look at my book here.
Oh, sweet.
I took it the first time. So we just thought, hey, I'm gonna jump in and see what I can learn and understand now that I've been in the business a little bit longer and kind of look at things from your guys' perspective on a leadership side of things. So.
Sweet. Anybody else?
Yeah, for me, it's just overall effectiveness in the hiring process. I think a part of great leadership is not only being able to hire talent, but also being able to cultivate them. And that first 90-day period is so important. So for me, it's just learning best practices and sharpening that axe.
Cool. Tyler made you, Lori. Okay, good, good. Anybody else? Any other reason why you're on today? So let's back up real quick. Again, the Leverage series is a 3-part course. There is the career visioning that's supposed to take you from gathering candidates, screening them all the way to deciding who's the most talented person to hire for a very specific position. You should have had a very clear expectation interview. You should have made them an offer, locked it down with a contract. And clearly by the name or the title of this course, it is 30, 60, 90. So this is the second course in the 3-part series, which is really just nailing the first 30, 60, 90-day periods and setting the stage. And then the third part, we used to call lead and motivate, but now we're calling it success through others. Like how do you actually succeed through other people versus trying to go around them, which is really after that 90 days from, 1 year to 100 years, however long you have those great people in your organization and just keeping opportunities in front of them. So let's start real quick. I'll share my screen now and just want to back up. Any comments on that, Jordan? Jordan is my co-host, my long-haired hippie.
You're a long-haired hippie. No, I think it's important when you bring talent into your world and spend the time to find talent, make sure you have a plan to help them win quickly and succeed in the role. Otherwise, talent is often going to get frustrated. Totally.
Actually, before they share those docs, let's just talk 1,000-foot level. So let's just throw out a few things. If you were to just, looking at it from afar, the 1,000-foot level, what is the purpose of the 30, 60, 90? What are we truly trying to accomplish in that 30, 60, 90-day period? I have a handful that I've written down, but what do you guys think? What are the main things that we're trying to accomplish in that 30, 60, 90-day period? Okay, I'll share mine then. So part of it is, the number one mistake I see people make in the hiring process is they don't follow the career provisioning process. The number two mistake I see people make is not having clear expectations in that first 30, 60, 90. And part of it is, there's people that like, quite a bit of management or supervision when they're in your organization. And then there's clearly a lot of, people that like full independence, but even people that really thrive in full independent professions or career jobs or whatever, even in that first 90-day period, they crave expectations, they crave training, they crave, the roadmap or the blueprint. But the handful of things that I wrote down of really what I'm trying to accomplish when I hire a rock star, and I've actually done the best job possible to determine that their talent, that 90-day period is still a probationary period to me. At the end of the day, you're taking a chance on someone and you're still trying to monitor throughout that first 90 days, whether someone truly is talent or not talent, and I think that 90-day, the better you do a good job at setting the right expectations, if they come to fruition that they're not talent, that is the best opportunity and usually the safest scenario to unplug someone that's not talent, right? And the better job that you're monitoring their progress and kind of pacing with the expectations you set on that 30, 60, 90-day plan, the more likely they're probably going to self-discover themselves out of it. But the handful of things that I put on 30, 60, 90 is just having really clear expectations and benchmarks on where the execution of their job description should be at on those benchmarks. And it's high level, right? And a lot of times, I was talking to Jordan yesterday about this, a lot of times I put myself in that shoe of that position, whether it's a sales agent, a director of ops, a team leader or whatever. And I try to just set the bar high as what could I, if I put my whole heart into this and work my tail off, what could I accomplish in that first 30 days and then 60 days or 90 days, right? So I think benchmarks is really clear. Even when you hire like a team leader or something, we're really clear how many appointments you should be at that 30, 60, 90 days, like even numerical things that we're trying to accomplish. The second thing that I think that I'm trying to accomplish is I'm trying to just see how fast and what the quality of progress is in their personal growth and development. Even when I hired my first director of operations, he came from outside the industry, right? So we had to teach him about real estate. We had to teach him about Keller Williams. We had to teach him how to be a director of ops all at the same time. But I had a high bar at the speed that I was going to require them to grow because we just didn't have time to goof around, right? We had big things that we want to accomplish. So growth progress, and where you think they should be at the understanding of not only the role, the company, the organization, the customer service. The third one I already mentioned is monitoring whether they're talent or non-talent, like really just, do they keep raising the bar? Are they really getting close to nailing those expectations? Or are they, were you kind of deceived a little bit in that hiring process to the point that they actually were more talk and less walk, And then the fourth one really for me is setting the stage at the speed, the pace, like the expectation of how much I want them to accomplish, like helping them to understand how high the bar is and how much opportunity there is. But it's also laying the groundwork on the intensity of accountability that I'm going to have ongoing in my organizations forever, right? And the better you do that out the gates, you're setting them up for success. Like I'm a big football fan, right? I'm assuming I know Shoney, Hayden, we talk about football all the time, but like when someone gets drafted into the NFL, can you imagine the intensity of that first 30, 60, 90 days when they become a professional athlete? It's not only like their nutrition, their workouts, but it's understanding a whole playbook. It's, all the different things that go into that, which is just insane. And that's the same level that you should have for your organization. Because I guess on the flip side of this, Jordan, even give me your opinion. Like if you don't execute what we're just talking about, a really effective 30, 60, 90, what risks are associated with that? Like how could that go wrong?
I think often either if you find someone who's highly talented and you don't train them appropriately, set the right expectations, you're going to end up in a really frustrating situation. You went through this probably 1, 2, maybe even 3-month time frame, and you're going to get to the end of that hiring process and then give them the job and end up with someone who's just going to give you the job back, who's either not going to execute appropriately, you're going to have mismatched expectations, or they're just simply going to walk away. I think the other risk is I think as agents, we often move very quickly. And it's our tendency that once we've hired somebody to be an assistant or a buyer's agent on our team, we want to just throw the job at them and run. We want to just continue working and continue going. We had to slow down to go through that career visioning process. I think the 30-60-90 allows us as agents and leaders to slow down and ask the question of how can I ensure this person succeeds in a massive way in the first 90 days and earns and owns their job.
Yeah. I think if you blow the 30-60-90 that first 90 days, I think you just highly risk losing the most talented people in the organization. Talent wants to run, talent wants to take on a lot. And the most talented people I've ever hired, it shocks me what they accomplish in 90 days. It really is, And so part of that is like you risk demonstrating your lack of talent, your lack of organization or whatever. And then again, the risk is you just end up attracting more sevens into your organization, and good is the enemy to great. And part of that is if you bring in a 7 into your organization and you get past this 90 days, which is kind of a little bit of your free window to unplug if it doesn't go well, you get past that, again, you get in that scenario where you built that box, right? That Gary Keller always talks about, where you love them, you care about them, they're good, but they're not great, but you can't get rid of them because they become your family to some degree. And then basically your organization's just going to flatline and you're just going to be doing a lot of work for not a lot of money, So let's start diving into it. I've got a ton of tools. I think, again, we'll zip through some of the slides, but I think half of what I'm wanting you guys to get out of this is just simply to either remind you or for you to understand the tools, the system, the organization of what KW's brought to you guys. And the other half is just kind of how you need to be navigating it, the skill set you need to have, organizing it, kind of the flow. But even if you got just understanding what's out there and what you should be doing, totally speeds up your ability to go execute that. So let's kind of get started. I just want to back up for 1 second on the career visioning checklist. Okay. Everybody see my screen? We're good. Okay. So again, this is the career visioning checklist. So this is the hiring process. Most of you came to my CV class, so you guys are very familiar with this. You did the interview, you did the job fit verification, you did the thought process, the life story, the motivation. You had some group interviews with people around you. You checked references. I know you're all checking references. You did your little defense meeting, and you have decided to hire someone. And part of the last thing I wanted to touch on real quick, which I skipped this, probably the first 30 hires I ever made. And it was such a mistake to skip the formality of having an expectation dialogue / interview. And then once you pass that, then you make that offer and you actually sign a written contract. But just to remind you, the tools that are out there, this is that expectation conversation sheet. This is vital. Once you've decided to hire them, this is a really cool conversation for you to have one-on-one with that hire on just how you win with each other, what you need to expect out of each other, how does somebody lose with you? How does someone lose with them? Just getting really clear on expectations. I don't quote my partner Clay Winder very often, but one of the things he says is all frustration comes from what, Hayden?
Unmet expectations.
Yes, you memorized it. All frustrations come from unmet expectation. I totally agree with that. All frustration comes from you just not being crystal clear on the expectation from them, from you, from how those are going to work together. So expectation you've completed now. You've got a signed contract, and we're immediately going to jump into the 30-60-90. Real quick, just to show you where a lot of these resources are, if you go to kwconnect.com, under here is the resources tab. You go down and under this leverage series icon, you click that and it opens you up to a world of cool tools. It's a treasure chest of hiring people to go build empires. At one point there was someone that had to click something to open up these resources to you. And the check mark that you had to do that was attend a career visioning class. So if it's not showing up, that could be the case. And you might have to just borrow some of these documents from Gordon or one of us or something. Otherwise, when you actually complete the full career visioning, normally that just automatically opens up. So if some of you don't have it, that's probably why, and just reach out to one of us. But here you go through, right here, it says where all the leverage classes are, how do you actually become a certified instructor, but all the career visioning docs are right there. So there's like 30, 40 docs in there. It tells you about the KPA, even org charts, all the updated org charts on positions that you should be hiring for at different levels of your team. They also have the different job profiles, which it lays out the description for all those, all the onboarding documents. But right here, you can see under Market Center and Agent Teams, they've already created sample 30, 60, 90 forms for almost every vital position in the organization, okay? And then also, which is a rough draft, you can download that template and then you should just be building on it. I'll show you one in a sec, but then they also have all these ongoing employee management forms. So this is more the success through others after the 90 days, a lot of those. So just to
Jonny,
go ahead.
all of these are open to everybody now.
Okay, perfect. So a lot of you agents, most likely, some of you are on here because you've got to go hire that first full-time administrative manager, right? That assistant, or really the big name should be called the director of operations. You have a high vision for that first hire, and you will make or break the progress of your real estate team on getting that dang first hire right. I see a lot of our agents make a mistake. Is Mo Anderson on? They half-ass the hiring process. They bring on a 7. They don't train and, they don't put them into a very high level training program. And then they basically just end up having someone on salary that now that they're at the same production level and they're making less money, right? Like you have to get that first hire right. Absolutely. And if you don't mind monitoring the chat, I know that one was you, but from now on, you monitor the chat, Jordan, in case someone has a question. So here's the sample one. So here's some good 30-day benchmark, 60-day, 90 days. So this is where you need to come in and actually go from rough to final draft and expand it and put a lot of real specific numbers and benchmarks and whatnot on there. But at least gives you the plan. And then once you actually have it completed, you want this completed before you hire someone. You've got to have the plan in place of how you're going to train them. And then when you present this to them on day 1 of orientation, their first day of employment, you actually sit down and you actually sign this so they understand very clearly what their expectations are going to be moving on. Okay.
I think it's also important when you hire somebody, generally we expect a return on that investment, right? Johnny, when you pay your director of operations, you don't expect to just make the same amount of money you were making before that hire. The 30, 60, 90 is your opportunity to ask yourself, what are the things that they need to do? Start doing that my team and I have not been doing, or take off my plate so I can go focus on what I do best in order to achieve that return on investment.
Yeah, and I had heard that several times, Jordan, and I just laughed at what some of the high level answers that I heard, because again, the standard out there and what the bar is, however many deals you're doing, and typically you should be on pace to do 30, 45 deals, on your own. You should be very, very profitable. You should have a lot of money sitting in the bank just to go take some of these steps on hiring. You should double your business with one full-time, high-level, talented administrative manager. And I had heard that 5-10 times at family reunion, and I'm just like, shut up. That is so unrealistic, And then again, I actually finally, after a year or two of hiring a bunch of bad assistants, that I totally just paused, and I'm like, I will not hire someone, and unless it is that high level of a candidate. We hired that person. We went from 66 deals the year before to 116 transactions the next year. Doubled our dang production with one full-time administrative manager. And even that first full year, because he saw the vision going down the road, he still probably only made 40, 50,000 bucks that first year. He's making a bunch more now, but again, people will grow with you as your organization grows, right? So career visioning is all about the candidate. I love this slide because again, when you go through that whole process, it is all about them, which again, this next one, simply the 30, 60, 90 is all about you. And these are kind of the stages, completing the pre-work, setting expectations, evaluate talent in the first 90 days, and then ensure ongoing alignment. Before we jump into best practices, I want to hear a couple things from those of you who have made mistakes. What is some of the biggest mistakes that you look back on that you made specifically in the 30, 60, 90 that you're committed to fixing this next round when you have someone else to take through it? Like, what are some mistakes that you've made in that 30, 60, 90? Going once, twice. Perfect. Everybody's perfect. Why are you guys not even on this class? I'm so shocked. That's awesome.
I think one big mistake a lot of agents and leaders make is inspecting what you expect. I think we're usually pretty committed through the first 30 days, through the, maybe first couple of weeks of a hire. But I think by the time you get to 60 days and 90 days, staying with that consistent daily and weekly accountability gets exhausting.
Yeah. So let's just try and go through a few best practices and then we'll come back on that. Okay. So again, the whole goal in that 30, 60, 90 is you are highly involved. You're supporting them, you're supervising them, you're in the trenches with them. And it's funny that the more businesses I own, the more I progress in my career, the more experience I've had, the more things that are on my plate or the leaders that I've hired, it keeps reinforcing the principle that you have to slow down to speed up. And again, there's times in your work life and in your businesses that if you don't take time out to think, prepare, organize, get the roadmap totally planned out, you're wasting more time than if you were just running the whole time, right? Like you really do have to truly dedicate yourself to taking that thinking time. And the better you execute this, the more you're going to love your life 2-3 years after this, right? But if you train someone mediocre, you're still going to spend the time training them. It's just going to be drug out and it's going to probably be a lot more time. And usually after 90 days, if you execute this, your supervision required after that 90-day period should be very, very minimal. Let's just try and zip through a couple of these. Again, pre-work, getting the pre-work is just really pounding out that 30, 60, 90. And a lot of times it's just stepping back and again, setting those benchmarks, thinking through it. But then again, SMART goals. You use the SMART goals in a lot of different business classes out there, but you have to have very specific, very measurable, very achievable, repeatable, and timely. Even not you and not the person you just hired, but if you can't give that 30, 60, 90 plan to someone totally random in your office and they fully have clarity and they fully understand that, you haven't gone deep enough on your SMART goals. Like you have to be able to have anybody on the street be able to understand what you need out of them and how you win or lose. And a lot of times it's the work that you have to do to get clear on that. Any comments on that, Jordan? Okay, we'll skip most of these, but go down to setting expectations, okay? So again, think of a role, and this is how my thought process works, is just future pacing, right? If I'm 30 days in on this, how would I feel that it was awesome with this candidate, right? Or this new hire. So just whatever the role is, you just have to imagine you've hired them and they just proved success in that 30, 60, 90 days and reverse engineer it. A lot of times you thinking about, oh, what could they accomplish? You just got to back into it a little bit. Review the GPS, the job profile, present 30, 60, 90, explaining the 20%, talk about earning the role, discuss accountability, all of this stuff that we're showing you, the documents, even that slider of them owning the role. That is all stuff that I'm just super transparent about. None of this I hold back. Like I want them to know and see as much as that as I have on the table.
Another way to look at writing that 30, 60, 90 is start with the template and then ask yourself the question, okay, if I hired this role and they could only take one thing off my plate in the first 30 days, what would that one thing be that I would be like, awesome, massive success? Then, okay, if they could accomplish one more thing in the first 30 days, what would that be? Mm-hmm. It's an easy way to start walking through the, like, where is the biggest pain point and the biggest opportunity for them to take something off your plate and immediately bring a return on investment.
Yeah, totally. So again, the first day that you hire someone, the first day of work, you should probably schedule out your entire day to just spend the whole day with them in the conference room, your office, or whatever. And this is kind of the flow of that agenda of that orientation meeting that you should be building out. So number one is reviewing your GPS. The first thing you should do is go over your company GPS and the goals that you have for the organization. You also can re-review their job profile, which you did in career visioning, just to really make sure they understand what their role is and what their responsibilities will be that tie back into that GPS. Then you present their 30, 60, 90. This isn't something that you should just have a rough draft and co-create. You need to have this very, very thorough. This is one of those documents you got to pound out before, but this is where you present it. And sometimes I spend a whole hour walking through the 30, 60, 90 with them just to make sure we are in total agreement and understanding of each one of those things, explain how you're going to hold them accountable to those, and then reconfirm their commitment to those goals. Is this something you feel like you can accomplish? Great. Do I have your commitment that you're going to go out and accomplish that?
I would also explain to them during this process of how you're going to train them to achieve those 30, 60, 90-day goals.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about just meeting schedule real quick, and even the ongoing documents, and even just, the paper trail of making sure that we're going down this road. But the third one is, we say this 100 times a day inside Keller Williams, but it actually is always surprising to me how many people don't understand what the 20% rule is, right? 20% of your activities lead to 80% of your results. So a lot of that just really clarifying that principle and teaching them in that 30, 60, 90 and their job description, what tasks, what activities, what things on their plate are really going to be the less activities that have the bigger result. And then again, making sure on point 4 is talking about them earning the role. Tell them what's expected to earn their role, present the job ownership graph. I literally print that off and put it on the table and say, look, this is going to be our accountability process, which I'll also discuss, the time commitment that it's going to take from you, and then discuss how they'll come to own their 20%. The accountability. So again, what is the accountability process of you being their coach, their supervisor on holding them accountable? So let's pause real quick and just talk about what your time commitment is in this. The more time you spend in that first 90 days, the less time you're ever going to have to spend with them moving on, right? Unless you're Jordan, it's constant supervision. It is like daily accountability. Just kidding. So the way that I even think about it, again, the first day of orientation is a big commitment. Like you want them leaving with a packet and just a full roadmap of what's going to go on. Pretty much for the first 30 days, I think a daily huddle, a daily quick convo at the beginning and end of the day is vital. Like just making sure they have clarity on what they're going to do that day and then summarizing it. How'd you do? At the beginning, it might be 10, 15, 20 minutes, but it could be eventually after even a handful of days, 5-10 minute check-in. And again, even when Boyd Brown hired me as team leader, he is probably one of the best examples of just trusting someone, training them, and just let them own their job and have independence. After the initial training period, I had a lot of independence in the team leader role, but I still remember that first 30, 45 days, I talked to him every single day. I talked to him every single day just to make sure that I was in total alignment with what's going on. That should be 5, 10, 15 minutes every day. You should expect to do that every day for 30 days. Maybe in the next 30-day chunk, that 60 days could move to every other day, something like that. But even on the 90-day period, you should still have several huddles with them to get them to fully own it. That's just the huddle on clarity of what their daily schedule is going to be. And then every week from the entire first 30, 60, 90 days, you should have an end of week summary accountability meeting with them. We're reviewing the success of the weeks. What could they have used more training on, more help on, or whatever. That also ends up being a little bit more of the coaching training appointment for me as well. Okay. One of the resources I wanted to show you real quick that's helped accomplish this, which is just setting up the future phases of accountability, is MAPS Coaching. MAPS Coaching has actually rolled out outsourced 30, 60, 90-day programs. So they started with team leader ones. They started with director of ops because those are probably two really, really vital roles to get right inside a market center business and a team business. But it's crazy how many they've actually rolled out now. They have them for productivity coaches, MCAs in offices, team leaders, but they have them for obviously director of operations. They have them for buyer's agents. They have them for listing agents, and they also have them for commercial. So part of this 30, 60, 90-day program, it is a daily contact by one of the highest level MAPS coaches in that arena. So they have a very thorough 30, 60, 90-day agenda. It's touch and base every single day. It's having goals. It's having clarity. They have a lot of group calls throughout the week that are also other director of ops and trainings, other expert director of ops. I've been blown away with how well these have been going. I don't know if Shoney's still on or not, but when I hired Shoney, actually, we put him through the team leader version of this. And it was an incredible high leverage, which was really, really cool because they actually did a better job than I did. But Shoney, if you don't mind piping in just for a couple minutes real quick, what was your experience on that 30, 60, 90, if you can?
Yeah, I think for me, there was kind of two different pieces that were super valuable. One, it was the setup. It was an every single day thing, for 90 days. So Monday through Friday, we would meet at 8 a.m. and go through different script practice and dialogues. Obviously, my priorities, my one thing, and really focusing on a part of it was an educational process. So like me downloading, what most people would learn in that role over a 2-year period in 90 days helped me to really know where to focus my energy. But then the second piece that was really valuable on top of the content that I was taught was the actual accountability. So somebody helping me to look at my daily lead measures every single day and report back how I did every 24 hours was super helpful, which I feel like in my own hiring process, that's some of the areas I've failed in the past, is having a high level of accountability around the lead measures on a consistent enough basis. What Jordan was talking about is inspecting what I expect. And so for me, that program just really helped me to make sure that I was consistently focused on my lead measures.
Yeah, and the one thing from the hirer perspective on the OP, when Shoni was going through that program the first 90 days, the accountability metrics they had on how they want to kind of report back to the OP was awesome. Shoni was sending me a very thorough weekly email on what they accomplished that week, what were some of the challenges they had, what's on the books for their goals for next week. And then also at the end of 30, 60, and 90-day chunks, they had a very thorough accountability where they were pacing on their certain benchmarks of the plan that they had. So even it just helped me be really good, because there's 3 ways to train someone. You spend all the time you have to train someone. Number 2 is you outsource everything because you don't want to spend time and you're willing to spend some money. Or 3, it's a combination of those 2. I think 3 is the best solution for me on outsourcing it and being willing to spend some money on it. And that's also why I think making sure that you're hiring at the right phase of your business. Like if you are just hiring because you want to, and you are only closing 5-10 deals a year, and every little bit that you're going to invest into this employee is going to feel like a big expense, you shouldn't hire that early. Hire later on when you have some funds to make sure that this is a true investment into just a future, very high level leader in your organization. So having Shoni specifically in that team leader one, we would still touch base every Monday morning. We would still have our coaching appointment throughout the week. And then we'd usually review some of those results that were coming in, but it was a really great symbiotic relationship with MAP. So I just, not promoting it, but it just was a very great experience for me. So just want to make sure you guys are aware of those tools. Any comments?
Hey, Johnny, one other thought that I had in all this conversation is that, yesterday, one of your wealth building segments, you talked about how there, in the path of money, there's 2 options. There's passive investing and then there's active investing. And I think we have to look at the hiring process the same way. Is too often people look at it as a passive, kind of opportunity where they'll bring somebody in and they want to passively engage with that new hire, when in reality, it is an active process, especially for that 90 days of investing into that person and making sure that not only are they focusing on what matters most, but also that you're pouring into them and getting them prepared to really take over.
Yeah, totally agree. Which, just to be candid, guys, like spending all this time hiring someone and spending all this time training someone for after 30, 45 days for it not to work out, it sucks. Like you just feel like you spend so much time and energy on it. But I'll tell you what sucks even more is having a mediocre person in your organization for 2-3 years that just totally ruins your opportunity costs, and you just stay at a flatline business and it could end up costing you millions of dollars, right? And again, having talent and training them right should just be a total double or a duplication of your production every time you bring in a talented person in your organization. And then again, present a schedule for the first 90 days and being really clear on what their ideal calendar should be looking like, right? I always tell this piece when I hired my first director of operations that just was a total great hire 10 years ago. Somewhere in that first 30, 60, 90-day process, I didn't micromanage his calendar very much, but I just said, hey, just be here by 9 and you can leave by 5-ish. And I made one comment on that. And for 10 years, I'll tell you, he is walking in the door at 9 a.m. and he is already in the parking lot at 5 p.m. And after a year or so, I'm like, man, 9 to 5, take an hour lunch. He's actually only working 6.5 hours a day, times by 5. That's like 30 hours. I probably should have set the better expectation from the beginning. But again, being really clear and almost building out in a spreadsheet what their ideal calendar should look like from some of the best models out there really helps them start out on the right foot of how they should be spending their time throughout the day. Even as an agent on Red Sign Team, our team, we have the perfect real estate agent calendar. And we've gone in and say, all right, if you were a robot and I could just make you do this every day, you would make $1 million a year. Just follow this dang schedule, And even at the very beginning of MREA, Gary Keller says it's not about selling real estate. It's about following, Jordan, what is it?
A schedule.
A schedule. It's not about selling real estate. It's about following schedule. You got to help them get their calendar right. And then again, evaluating talent, focus on evidence, not emotion. You know, you should be very organized, be using these tools enough to get out of the emotion, get out of the words, get out of the verbal conversation, and focus on the evidence, the results, the bottom line, right? Because again, a lot of times we get sucked into relationships and the emotion of relationships that skews our judgment a little bit on is this the right decision? And the setup from Keller Williams and all these documents is giving you the pathway to make sure you're basing your decisions on evidence, right? Let's skip a bunch of this. So 411. 411. Jordan, here, just give an explanation real quick. I think everybody knows, but what is a 411?
It's a breakdown of taking your goal from an annual goal into a monthly goal and then into weekly goals of, okay, what's the lead domino I need to knock down this week in order to achieve my goal this month to be on track to achieving my goal this year. The other thing you'll see it with a lot of 411s, I don't think this one necessarily shows it, but a 411 really should show all areas of somebody's life, not specifically just work. This is a great opportunity as you're leading and coaching your people to know what else is going on in their world, what's important to them outside of work, in their health and their emotional, personal relationships, things like that. So you can really show up and be a leader for them in their life, not just a boss.
Yeah. And all this tool does is just, it's bringing clarity to what's more important that you should spend your time on, right? Because if you don't have this, what tends to happen is you just roll through your days, weeks, months, and you start treating everything equally, which just drastically decreases your results that comes out of that, right? And again, there's times that I didn't start in that 90 days with the 411 tool, and then trying to reintroduce them to be accountable with the 411 was way harder than just the people that I started 30, 60, 90 days, those first 3 months with the 411 tool. So once you present your 30, 60, 90-day plan, this is the tool that you should expect back from them, that is them themselves helping clarify what's most important on the week by week to the month of that, okay? And trust me, if you start out using the 411 tool, it'll be drastically easier to keep them on the 411 tool. I didn't start Jordan on one. And when's the last time you filled one out? Like 2020, what was it?
I don't know, September.
Oh, okay, good. Well, you're a MAPS coach now, so you better be leading from the front. And then again, this says a 90-day evaluation, but outside of the weekly Friday afternoon, weekly accountability meeting where I review their 4-on-1, what was your goal? How did you do? How do you feel about that? What is your goal next week? Those 4 questions Gary says over and over. What was your goal? How did you do? How do you feel about that? What's your goal next week, right? That should be part of your cadence every single week. But then at the end of 30, 60, 90, you should be doing a lot more thorough evaluation on their performance. So those are those benchmarks. And again, if they're so far off on the expectations you met at 30 days, unplug them. Like, it is what it is, right? And again, when people think about, oh, I'm going to go hire a director of operations, it could cost me $70,000 a year. It might cost you $4,000 or $5,000 for the first month. If you spend $70,000 on someone that's not helping you make more money, that's your fault.
I think it's important to just honor the contract, right? Treat that 30, 60, 90 like a contract, and just every week in that appointment, pull up that document and say, cool, like, your goals were this. How do we feel about that? Like, are you on track to hitting your 30-day goals, or are you not? Yeah. And if you set the expectation up front that they are earning the job 30 days at a time by achieving those goals, if they're not willing and able to go do the work it takes to achieve their 30-day goals, they will exit that relationship for you.
Yeah. And again, here's just another tool that they're providing you for, like every one of these phases and pieces of the process, there's some sort of sample document. So here's the 90-day ongoing expectation conversation and the six steps that basically should be some of your agenda on the evidence of their 90-day review. So again, reviewing their job profile, how well are they executing those tasks? How well did they do on the 30, 60, 90-day goals? Go over their training plan. How well did they grow? How well did they actually execute their growth training plan? Assess the progress in achieving goals. And again, like, if they aren't into full momentum after that 90-day process, you might have a problem, right? And there might be a few tweaks that you make, But again, just assessing their progress. Number 4, gauge job ownership. Like, do you just feel it? This is where some of the motion can come in. Are you energized when you have conversations with them? Like, do you start feeling like you're going down the road that you're wanting things for them more than they want them for themselves, right? Are you feeling like you're constantly repeating yourself? Are they saying the same things over and over and you haven't seen any evidence of that? That's where you can start gauging job ownership. Like, the people that take the job by the horns and they just own it, I love just being in the room with them. Like, I feel the difference in those conversations. And then again, number 5's make red light, green light. So, what do you need to stop? What do you need to speed up? What do you need to spend more time on? And now you're kind of transitioning from that first 30, 60, 90. They should have taken full ownership of the position. And then you're going to simply explain the ongoing expectations and accountability beyond that. And again, you might not have to do daily huddles. You might start getting some of your time back. But once you pass that 90 days, at a minimum, you're still a 30-minute a week coaching appointment with them, right? An accountability. Even if they have a MAPS coach or someone else, minimum talent in your organization, you need to spend a half an hour with them at least every single week. Any comments on this, Jordan? Jordan, they're both on. Okay. Go over training plan. Let's try and move on to the lead and motivate the success through others real quick. If you haven't seen this, again, I use this in every Friday appointment with 30, 60, 90, but at least every 30, 60, 90 day evaluation where you have that thorough meeting. I remind this and I reprint it off, non-talent role. Non-talent role brings you problems. They don't fulfill your needs and ends up giving you back pieces of their job, right? That's a very fast sign for me that if I give them a job, they understand it, and then somewhere in the next couple weeks, I get their job back. That is a definition of non-talent for me. Doesn't know what they want or isn't searching, they require pushing, right? Yeah, there might be some initial like training and motivating, but you feel like you're constantly have to push them. That's not a great sign. May not know where the existing bar is set or even what bar you're talking about. Doesn't care who they spend their time with and repels talent from them. And then when they try to talk action results, they can't back it up, or it just starts to sound like rhetoric, right? Talent, again, remind them what talent is. And a lot of times when I'm reviewing this with someone, it's making me remind myself. It's making me be re-aware of what I should expect in that role. But talent finds solutions. They share their goals and fulfills your needs as a natural byproduct of filling their own. They know what they want and is actively searching to know, pushes you, is continually raising the bar, demands to be associated with talent, attract talent to them, talks the language of action and results. Okay.
And Johnny, that could be really uncomfortable for you as the leader when somebody pushes you.
Oh yeah, yeah. Which let's actually that's a great transition piece. But let's try and cap off the 30, 60, 90. Real quick, what did you learn? What are you recommitting to? What was aha or made your light bulb go off? And then we'll transition to after that 90-day period. What was helpful? What are you going to commit to working on when you hire someone or restart that 30, 60, 90 with someone? Just share a couple things. Deanne, Carol, Angela, see Lisa on here, Riley, Cameron. Any comments? 30, 60, 90.
The daily huddle.
Daily huddle.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay. Anybody else? Jordan, anything else to cap on 30, 60, 90?
I think I would just say slow down and truly follow the process. Honor it. Yep. Which again is the hardest pill to swallow, is taking your precious time to get the hire right and to train right. Once you've done those two things, like you built an empire, So now let's transition to the success through others. Again, success through others is now you're past that 90 days. And how do you just create the environment? How do you continue the accountability, the expectations, the raising the bar? How do you continue to lay out opportunities in front of them? But let's just talk about this, Jordan. Like when you think about the high level interaction of either following a leader or you leading people, when you talk about having someone in your organization that's just awesome, right? And maybe even our relationship, we can get real on this. Like, what is the role of the leader? Like when you want to follow a great leader, like what is the role of that person? I think for me, first and foremost, it's creating it's a massively compelling vision. And it's a vision that I can see myself as a part of. So it's, hey, here's this big organization. Here's how we're going to go change the world together. And here's specifically where you fit into that vision and that opportunity. It's that idea of no one succeeds alone and no one fails alone. So if I'm going to go build this big empire, we've talked a lot about like, okay, like what does it look like to take Red Sign Team and make it a global brand? Well, where do I fit into that world and how can I play a part in achieving that?
Yeah. So let's get personal on this, Hayden, if you don't mind me picking you too, but not like John Maxwell, what is a great leader and influence is a definition. Like for you personally, in your experience of someone that's been a great leader for you personally, how did they show up? What did they do for you? And why was that a great experience for you? Could be any time in the last 15 years.
Man, well, I was just thinking about our lunch yesterday and you, but I know you probably don't want me to pick on you and have you be the guy that I
Go
that I
ahead.
went to for some really good advice. And Shoney, I think the leadership in our brokerage here has been really, really awesome, from like books to read to things we should be doing and market updates and just leading us in the right way, in the right direction. And man, my wife, but
She tells you no, and it's the right no.
yep,
Good.
she's good at that.
Who else? Who else wants to chime in? Like, give us a scenario where someone was a great leader, and why were they a great leader? Like, what did they do for you that made them a great leader that led you and motivated you? Which we're defining what your role should be after that 90-day period, right? A good leader causes you to see things in a different way, think about things from a different perspective, is honest, and is there to support. Yeah, that's one of mine. Because again, what even Hayden was talking about yesterday is you kind of already knew what you wanted out of the conversation, but like sometimes you just get in your head, right? Like the amount of thoughts that go on in your brain all the time, like the amount of information you're trying to filter, like life can just get confusing, right? And it is easy to get sidetracked or get influenced by things that potentially might not be the right direction you should go around, right? And having a really strong leader that can just be logical, that can help care about you, love you, but think through things with you, that helps keep you in alignment, right? And a great coach can do this. Like I've had some great coaches to just, me laying out a plan and them helping just like from an external force, tell me where I may or may not be going right, has just saved me hundreds of thousands of dollars from almost preventing mistakes to some degree, right? But I do agree, a good leader causes you to see things in a different way, think about things from a different perspective.
I think put a little differently, a really incredible leader helps you discover what your true north is and holds you accountable to doing whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah. Because a great leader pulls the best out of you, right? Totally. And that's why you chase great leaders. I do think what one of you said is a compelling vision, right? Which is the first thing on here. You bring talent in your organization. You're right. Gordon said this, you better run freaking fast because they will be pushing you. I have grown drastically more when I brought talent into my organizations than I ever would have just totally on my own, right? Hiring a great person is the fastest way to grow because you got to stay ahead of them. You got to have a vision big enough, and your world, just like this graphic shows, you have to have such a very clear vision of where you want your world, that they know, no doubt, that they have no ceilings, or whatever they want to accomplish, they're going to be able to do it inside of your world, right? And even Gary Keller said that in a different way. A lot of people think Gary's just this genius that somehow, he's got a computer chip in his brain and he's just able to process more information, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of times he looks so much smarter in meetings, in appointments, in, trainings or whatever, not because he actually was that much smarter, but he just spent a little bit more time than everybody else in the room preparing or studying or researching or focusing on something before that thing came up. There's a lot of people too that just wing it, or they come in and they're coming in to learn versus they learn and then they come in to brainstorm, mastermind, or talk through it. So I think someone that just is actually over preparing beyond everybody else. You want someone wise, you want someone intelligent, and you want someone typically kind of a step ahead of you. You want to be able to see where they're at. That potentially could be your future. It's like getting someone totally unhealthy as your trainer. Like that's more demotivating than what comes out of their mouth, right? So I think that's important. But I was even talking, I've got a handful of just incredible, great talent on Red Sign team, my real estate team. And I was talking to one of our leaders yesterday that, a lot of the time I spend thinking about my leaders isn't necessarily what they're going to do, the strategies, the systems they're going to run or whatever. The vast majority of time I'm thinking about is trying to look down the road farther than them and think through all the opportunities that I've got to figure out how to create for them to just keep them as happy as possible and running as fast as they can down that road, right? A good leader, if you've ever seen that 5 life relationships that Gary always has, who you determine wealth for matters, right? And again, you just want to know that there's someone ahead of you that is just totally just exploding your life. Do you remember what Gary Keller's goal was? What was it, like 15, 20 years ago? He got really clear what his goal was. He wanted to create a certain amount of millionaires. Do you remember what that number was, Jordan?
I want to say it was 1,000.
10,000.
Was it 10,000?
His big goal is he wanted to help enough people and lead enough people that he created 10,000 millionaires inside of Keller Williams. And I bet if they actually really thoroughly research that, I bet we're there. I bet he has easily done that.
I heard recently that based on just the market center owners, the regional owners, and some of the major teams in Keller Williams, he's already hit that goal.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have 3 billionaires in Keller Williams. They have built $1 billion worth of net worth inside of Keller Williams. One, clear as Gary, obviously, multi-billionaire, I'm sure. But again, these other 2 started out as brand new agents in our ecosystem and just grew the most incredible empires. Ben Kinney's one. He's officially net worth of $1 billion. Tim Heil, that young friggin' punk. What is he, like 27, 28 years old? I remember him showing up to a meeting. I thought he was the biggest little frat boy, just a little confident guy, but he is so smart and he's just built an incredible organization fully inside the organization, Keller Williams, right? And again, Gary thinks there is just a slew of billionaires coming down the road that have built their billion inside KW for the most part. Anything else of what you think a leader needs to be? Okay. We'll just try and zip through these and then I'll just end with kind of a system that I've even incorporated. So one of them, again, is just having a really compelling high-level GPS for your organization. But one of the things that I require out of every talented person in my organizations is a yearly GPS. I want them to have a real clear plan, a real big goal, the priorities, and then what the action-oriented strategies that they're going to accomplish. So at a minimum, if you're not expecting a GPS every year before the year starts, usually when I roll into October for me as a leader is where I do all my planning. I get a lot of my mindset, my goal set. November for me is where I navigate the vast majority of my people in my organizations through their goal setting. And then December should just be momentum. The people that wait till January to start goal setting or even taking December, you're just losing some time on that. I'm close to being number 4. I think there might be a couple people ahead of me. Okay, anything else? GPS, seize the opportunity. We'll skip a bunch of this. So one thing that I wanted to end on, and Jordan, you can share your story. I always pick on you for, but I found out very early on when I started bringing talented people into my organizations that my investment into their success should go way outside the lines of just their profession, right? And some of the best leaders that I've ever had in my life and the people that are mentors or I look up to have helped me in areas of life that totally are unrelated to my job, right? And the company goals and stuff like that. So we found it necessary very early on as I was trying to not only help my talent and my people that were with me to have clarity on their goals before they rolled into the next year. But I also wanted to be able to be bought into their goals, So real quick, I know some of you, Hayden, Jordan, Shoni, you know about it, but one of the things that we do that I started, 7 years ago as a team leader, I just found there was a lot of people that I wanted to help have clarity of their goals. My staff at KW Westfield, my Red Sign team members, my ALC, a lot of other top agents started participating with us. We do a year goal setting retreat. We take a whole day where we just go through every area of life. And the way I've even defined the 7 areas of life, your health, your soul, your spiritual life, your relationships, the way you use time, the most precious resource on the planet, your career, your profession, your business. Money is a separate category for us. And then the impact, the charity, like the dent in the world that you're going to go make. Every year, all of the people in my organization come out of that one day with this one sheeter. They come out with their mission statement. They come out with their big rock in each one of these areas of life. And then the handful of strategies or habits they're going to have to be on pace to accomplish those goals. And also potentially, you know, the people that they're either going to have as a mentor or even a paid coach or someone that's going to be that external force that holds them accountable to, you know, their MAPS coach. And every day, I mean, after that, I make all those people give me a copy of this. And a lot of times I'll just pin it up on my board in front of my computer, or sometimes I have them on my house on a board, just to make sure I'm constantly aware of truly what they're trying to accomplish. Because number one, you want to invest into those people in those other areas of life, right? And Jordan will share one of his favorite stories about that. But then number two is as a leader, after that first 90-day period, I think it's common in life to sometimes just get lost. Like sometimes you forget what you really want, or what, you know, when you go through that motivational interview and career visioning and you pull out the things that are the most important to them. Sometimes life just, you know, you just forget or you get burnt out or something. And your responsibility as a leader is to make sure you keep bringing them back to achieving the best version of themselves, you know? So share your health goal that you did that one year.
Yeah, so that was a fun
process. Yeah.
That was a fun goal. I was sitting down in a very comfortable conference room at a hotel, and we were at this retreat, and Jonny asked the question, what's some big crazy goal you want to do in the health area of life? And for me, goals have to have something behind them more than just like, oh, it'd be really cool to have that. And that earlier that year, about a month prior to this retreat, one of my close friends had actually lost his life hiking in the mountains, and he'd set the goal to summit 100 peaks in 1 year. Now, for those of you who do a lot of hiking in Utah, you probably know that's kind of an audacious goal. That's about 2 peaks a week, but we also live in a world where it snows, there's storms, life shows up. But I set the goal to do it for him and do it in his honor. So I called it my Summit Century. And my goal was in 2019 to summit 100 unique peaks in 1 year. And putting that goal out there, telling Jonny that goal, telling my team members that goal, telling my friends and family that goal, saying it in a very comfortable hotel room sounded easy. Then when I got up on January 1 to go hike the first peak, and it was 27 degrees at the top and windy, and I was freezing cold, that's when it got really real. But it was fun because even as the year went on, I don't think a day went by that I didn't get asked at least 3 to 4 times, what number are you at? What peak are you summiting next? And it was cool to see as I got through all these peaks and summited all these mountains, and we got to, I think I summited the last one on December 23rd. It was just before the end of the year. I was able to summit the last peak, again, back in the snow, climbing through 4 feet of snow and doing whatever it takes. So when you have a team that's committed to helping you achieve your goals, both inside and outside of work, it makes the accomplishments that at some point seem impossible become non-negotiable.
Yeah, and even being part of that story a little bit, obviously, you know, you set that at that goal setting retreat, and part of that is if you don't help your people take time outside of their chaos tornado schedule to just be, you know, separated from the world and set goals, they're never going to set big goals like that. They're going to coast into their year, and they're going to have just a mediocre productivity year. So part of it is just getting big things. And that was a huge thing. And we're not talking about hills. We're talking about Mount Timpanogos Mountains that would take me, and I'd be wiped out for 3 months after I hiked it. Right. And you were getting to the point that you were running up those hills, but obviously I tried my best to stay in tune with it, but there was no way that my energy single-handedly would have helped you accomplish that. But that was one of the craziest things to me, is it wasn't a leader to, you know, employee type of scenario. It was so crazy that there was like 40 people that jumped on the bandwagon to help hold you accountable. And the other thing I noticed too, Jordan, that which I actually haven't talked to you about this, When we rolled around half the year, month 7 or 8 or something, you were actually drastically behind the pace that you needed to be. And everybody does that, right? Like everybody gets behind on some of their goals or a lot of their goals. And you have two options, right? Which 99% of the planet take option one. And they're like, give up, I'll restart January 1, right? And that's very common for us to naturally conclude to that. But it was crazy to me, the energy that was the exact opposite, because nobody let you off the hook and almost like intensified their like accountability of that. And that's where the frequency of people asking you about it, because you probably maybe once a week people would ask you, but towards that last 4 months of the year, daily, which was crazy, which even took some of the accountability off my plate because everybody's so bought into
At the end of June, I was at peak 34.
it. So you accomplished 75% the last half of the year. That's crazy. Cool. Fantastic story. Thanks for sharing, Jordan. Anything else? That's kind of all I had. I figured we'd take about 60 minutes, but anything else that you guys would like to discuss? Any questions that you still had coming into this that you want to get answered, or maybe some cool stories or even things that you wanted to go through a little bit more? Throw it out to everybody. Anything from you, Carol, Hayden, Lisa, Lori, Riley, Shoni, Tamara, anything that you guys wanted to share, any ahas or even anything you want to go deeper on real quick? Marco.
Well, for me, I really enjoy being around our leadership and the agents to set my financial goals. I mean, my personal financial goals, growing my business, has been really exciting over the 17 years I've been here, and having Lee and Scott push me out of my box and continually outside my box to grow that and be financially secure in retirement, and then also use that to help my family members. Like my dad now has to be in skilled care. I'm able to use my knowledge to rent his house out to help pay for that. It's pretty extraordinary that we can help others do that.
Yeah. Who else? Lisa, anything you want to share?
I just have a hard time staying on track as a leader, focusing on, what I'm supposed to be doing to lead. I guess I've got one admin, and for me, it's challenging to really stay focused.
Yeah. Well, and this the tone of how we're communicating about this is the tone I'm wanting you to accept, but it's also a very intimidating tone, right? Like you understand the intensity, the time, the work that it takes to live at this level with that one person. But if there's one thing that I can tell you, and one thing that I challenge you all on, because a lot of you are in that first phase where you're trying to bring that first person into your organization, you have to take a stand on that first hire. And it's not just a stand on hiring them, but it's a stand on the culture that you're creating of a level of productivity, a level of accountability, because I promise you, if you really spend the time and the heart that you need to put into doing this, when you go to bring that second talented person into your organization, it is drastically easier for you to have that level of intensity on it already being built into your organization. And then the third one, because you basically, once you get that second person, there's 3 of you now, you have a company. Like you have a company and you have a culture that you've created. And that'll set the tone, whether you've done it the right way or the wrong way, it'll set the tone of what your future of that business is. And I behoove you to just spend the time and the emotion and the energy to just do it right the first time. Because just like you, Lisa, I'll tell you, I screwed it up 15 times. Like I hired employees. My director of ops was the 9th assistant that I hired. And I finally, after just 2-3 years of screwing it up, I just got so mad at myself. And I got so mad at me wasting my time, my money, my energy, being away from my family, all the bad things that happened at it, that I just got so frustrated that I just refused to hire someone unless I was going to do it the right way. And it started with me, and I just got that commitment. And then surprisingly, the talented person showed up that made that 30, 60, 90 easier. And then it just set the tone of just, Red Sign being a solo agent to being a team of, 400 transactions, Lori, anything? That's what I was going to say. I think I need to work on getting my business cleaned up more precisely before I'm in the place to hire. I love you. They're willing to share experience. And again, it wasn't all totally dialed in. You know, I was still figuring out a bunch of it along the road, but I at least tried to set the right expectations from the 1,000-foot level. But the resources we have, again, I wasn't the best person to train a director of operations. So we were willing to just put them in whatever MAPS coaching program, have them go shadow someone, pay someone to, you know, hold them accountable, but it was in cooperation, obviously, with our intensity. So, Jordan, anything else you want to do to sign off?
No, I think just follow the process, right? Like it's been laid out. Go take the full career visioning experience if you haven't yet. That goes much more in depth than we did today. And then just commit to following the model that's going to lead you to success.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Lisa, for participating. Thanks, Hayden. Thanks, Lori, for chatting away. A few of you other had a little comment, Shoni as well. But anything else you guys wanted to bring to the group before we end? Okay. Everybody raise your hand and say, I commit to following the 30, 60, 90 on my next hire. Good. I read your lips, Hayden. That is not what you said. All right. Thanks, everybody, for being on the class and the call. Have a fantastic week. See you, everybody.
Thanks, Johnny.
See you.